There's also a big research effort goes on here at the Met Office to improve the understanding of how our atmosphere works, really on timescales from seconds out to centuries. And some of it is very relevant to horticulture. So earlier today, I took the panel out to meet a few of the scientists who work here. We're in a seated area just out of the side of the Met Office building, between two wings. It's all nicely planted up. It's a lovely, pleasant place for the staff to sit and have their lunches. But I've assembled some of the best scientific brains of the Met Office for you to quiz. These are the people that are doing the day-to-day research that goes into our forecast. So we've got Adam Scaife here, we've got Michael Sawnby, and we've got Debbie Hemming. Debbie, your particular area of interest is climate change and impacts of climate change, is that right? You've been looking, I think, at things like growing season, how that's changed over previous decades. What sort of things are you finding?
So one of the things we've been looking at is the effect, obviously, of climate variability, extreme events, and long-term climate changes, including, for example, changes in carbon dioxide levels and other gases, and changes in long-term soil structure that can affect plant growth.
It sounds like an amazing set of data there, but what I think, surely it's good, isn't it? These CO2 levels are rising from the plant's perspective.
Well, yes, this is true, and actually even from, in a way, the globe's perspective, because without greenhouse gases and other carbon dioxide and other similar radiative gases, we wouldn't have the climate that we're enjoying now. However, because we're adding very quickly to carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, this is changing our climate quite quickly. And you're right in that plants use CO2 like we use oxygen they use it almost as a fertilizer to growth. And so most plant species will increase growth in response to carbon dioxide as long as they're not limited by other factors like drought.
So it's purely that it's changing too rapidly that it's causing problems?
Well, I think it's causing problems in many other areas. So you may have a positive benefit of CO2 increase in that some plants may grow quicker and be more productive, but other plants may be outcompeted and therefore may not be so successful.
Adam Scaife, let's go to you. Just give us your job title.
So I lead the monthly, seasonal and decadal predictions that the Met Office produces. That's the bit between weather and climate, if you like. Yeah,
it's the difficult bit in between, isn't it? I mean, we're pretty good these days at the sort of next 4, 5, even 6 days. We're getting a good handle on where we might go way beyond that as well. It's that in-between bit that's really tricky.
That's right, but it's an important timescale because a lot of people plan for months or years ahead.
And particularly gardeners, we'd love to know what
the lifetime of many plants is only a few years perhaps.
Yeah.
So while we have good indications that in the very long term, decades ahead, things will warm, the climate of the UK is expected to be warmer, perhaps wetter in winter. On any sort of timescale from say a month to a decade ahead, then the natural fluctuations actually dominate and really govern what's going to happen in the near-term future. And so you can't use the very long-term predictions to plan what's going to happen in the next year or two. Things don't progressively warm year on year. There is a lot of natural variability, and it's that we're trying to predict to fill in the gap between, as you say, the weather forecasts and the climate projections, and that requires a lot more science. It's a difficult task, but we are making headway with that.
Do I have to carry on planting very, very hardy plants for the next few years, or can I risk a few tender ones?
So the skill of the forecast is good in the tropics, where the ocean governs the atmosphere. In our part of the world, it's much harder. We do now have skill for a season ahead in winter, so we can say something about the winter, but I can't answer your question for the next few winters. That is not yet doable. We do know some of the drivers that have forced the recent cold winters, though, even though they totally buck the climate change trend, which is for milder winters on the whole. Things like El Nino away in the Pacific might sound a long way away and totally remote, but actually they do have a remote impact on the UK's winters. There are other factors as well, small fluctuations in output from the sun, several other things like the condition of the Atlantic Ocean. What we're doing is putting all of those things together in the supercomputer and using them to make long-range predictions for the sorts of things that might be relevant to you. So, for example, in this winter there has been a much reduced risk of a really severe winter compared to, say, the winters of 2009-10 or 2010-11 when we had those really severe events. It could still happen, but the risk is lower than in those years.
And it still doesn't mean you won't get a week or so when it is really cold, and then
yes,
maybe flip
reduced
that
risk
something
rather than
mild.
total whiteout.
Yes,
We did
yes,
have a bit
exactly.
of.
You keep us on our toes, don't you?
All we can do is predict the risk. It's not like a weather forecast a day ahead where you can be more definitive. All you can do now is calculate the risk, but that's useful.